All right, welcome back to another video. In this particular video, we're going to be going over saying number 42 from the Gospel according to Thomas. Keep watching. All right, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again. If you're actually new to this channel, consider subscribing because what I go over is esoteric and exoteric research in retrospect to how it influences you and how by being on a more pious lifestyle, how that can help you in your soul journey on obtaining the light for you, okay? So like I said in the introduction, we're going to be going over saying number 42. This will be an advanced interpretation. If you are not familiar with the Gospel according to Thomas, these were actual texts that were actually discovered, of course, supposedly in Nag Hammadi, Egypt for you. Now, they did wait a little while before they published them, but once they were made public available for you, then these were supposed to be the actual straight sayings of Jeshua, okay? They were supposed to be the uncontaminated sayings, obviously, but obviously, when you're dealing with the Pharisees and scribes there. So we're gonna go over this particular saying here, 42. So it says, Jeshua says, you must be what? Passers-by. If you haven't actually seen the interpretation for saying 18, I recommend you viewing that. I'll leave it underneath the like button in the description area for you, and that might help you understand this one in terms of connecting these two together, because Jeshua is actually talking to these particular ones who are actually on a path of attainment and trying to encourage them to be passers-by. So in this particular video, we're going to help you understand why this type of level of encouragement was actually being given to those particular ones that he was actually speaking to, okay? So let's go ahead and look at this particular saying here from the Keys of Enoch, okay? This is from page 446. So it says, Metatron told me, however, that man must distinguish between the lower levels of subjective experience produced by phosphene geometries as opposed to the divine light directly revealed through Merkabah. These subjective patterns of phosphene geometries, for example, stars, wheels, bright dot patterns, etc., which arise out of altered states of consciousness, are still the result of the physical patterns of consciousness connected with the lower vibratory grid. Okay, so this is what we're going to actually use to help build a foundation for this particular interpretation. Now, what you are actually needing to distinguish is you need to be aware of a subjective experience produced by phosphene geometries, okay? Phosphene geometries are like light patterns. You can call them particles, something along those lines, of course. Sometimes you might notice that you'll see like little specks or bright dot patterns or something, right? Now, these arise out of altered states of consciousness, and these are the result of physical patterns of your consciousness that are connected with lower vibratory grids. Now, the reason why this is important, what I'm going to explain, is that when you're on this path of attainment, you have to be aware of certain types of energies that try to pull you into a lower position, okay? Because when you're on a path of attainment, you're actually leaving something. Like, for example, you are, instead of going in a downward spiral, you're actually going in an upward spiral. However, through that process of going up, you are leaving possibly certain types of situations there that are trying to build a connection for you to return back to. And that's what is being explained in this book of knowledge here, where it says that you have to understand the difference, right, between those types of experiences as opposed to that which is of the divine light directly revealed through Merkabah. Okay, so that's what we're going to use to explain this. Now, let me go ahead and actually show you this particular passage here. This is from chapter 13 from the Bhagavad Gita here for you, okay? So this is from chapter 13 here. So let's go ahead and get that explained. So it says, Arjuna said, okay, oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about the prakriti, which means nature, parusa, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field. and of knowledge, and the end of knowledge. The blessed Lord said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. And one who knows this body is called what? The knower of the field. So what you're going to leave this particular video with more understanding of is this particular field called what? The morphogenetic field. Okay, the morphogenetic field. So let's go ahead and get that information here for you. So it says the morphogenetic field is made of interwoven particle grids. Now remember, in the Bhagavad Gita, it worded it different there, right? It said praktri. That's what it says here. But then in this particular passage here, we see that it's actually partikai. So partikai grid. So it says the morphogenetic field is made of interwoven particle grids, the electrotonal units of consciousness out of which particle grids create standing wave patterns, scalar wave grids, which hold the form of consciousness within dimensionalized manifestation, okay? It says morphogenetic fields are thus scalar grids that form in specific ordered interrelationship, right? Particle grids form upon the core geometrical mathematical structure of the Cathar grid. And so the Cathar grid represents the core scalar field upon which what? Form manifests, okay? For which form manifests. Now this is basically giving you information of the what? The holographic template, the holographic template. Now the reason why we're precepting this line upon line, here a little and there a little for you, is because when we look at the keys of Enoch here, and it's giving us information, it's saying that you have to distinguish between subjective experiences produced by phosphene geometries, okay? Because when you're on this path of ascending upward, when you're on this path of ascending up out of the electromagnetic static haze that you might have created for yourself, then you have to understand that there are various different patterns that are connected with lower vibratory grids that you have to make sure that you don't allow to connect up to you to pull you back down out of a situation that you got out of. So when we think about phosphine geometries, of course, we're thinking about a situation such as like unto this, because remember how it said that we're dealing with stars, wheels, and bright dot patterns, okay? So some of you might be familiar with something along these lines, and what ends up happening, of course, is this information ends up being connected to lower vibratory grids, of course, that is trying to get you to come back into that electromagnetic static haze, and then you just get caught up into experiences and forgetting about the path possibly that you were supposed to be working toward, okay? So then you're back doing this downward spiral, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So then in this particular saying, when Jeshua is saying you must be passers-by, and I'm going to do the best that I can to try to help you understand how to not get caught up in those particular downward spirals, so then you'll understand how to have an experience, but how to return back to your point, if you get what I'm saying. So like in this particular illustration, of course, let's just say that you're supposed to be at the top here, the particle antimatter. And you see how you have a point there, meaning you are centered, right? So notice how you have the particum, which is the matter side, and you have the partica, which is the antimatter side, right? So then you have the particum, notice how it's going in a what? Counterclockwise direction. Do you see that? It's going, so we can identify that as being this spiral that's on the left, fair enough. And then you see the one on the right here is going in a clockwise direction. Do you see that? And we can identify that as being the spiral on the right, right? So what I'm trying to explain is that while you're on this ship and you are moving, right? You are actually moving, you're gonna have your experiences dealing with matter, right? But you have to know how to go and maybe experience that and understand what that situation is, but know how to come right back to your center And notice how the circle here for the matter side is much smaller. Notice how it's much smaller than the circle here for the particle antimatter side, which means that you cannot develop much mass. You have to understand how to let stuff go that's associated with lower vibratory grids and not try to maintain those types of connections. And that's what it basically says when it mentions that you must be a passerby. You must be a passerby. So you have to be that one that knows how to actually experience something, but not allow that experience to prevent you from going up through this experience, okay? And some of you are familiar with this illustration here that I've shared with you before. And this is like a universal time matrix. So when you think about in the book of Genesis, when it says, who told you you was naked? What we're trying to explain, of course, is that you see in the top left hand, see how that looks like a spiral, but a cone as well, right? So what ended up happening, of course, is through that process of listening to information that you weren't supposed to listen to, you actually came all the way down here to the lowest level down here. And that is basically the experience of this downward spiral. So whenever you are experiencing that, of course, then you're caught up in a bunch of hard drive memories, processes, and physical body intelligence. You get what I'm saying? So there are certain experiences that are down there, even when you are moving up through the various different levels here, those experiences exist. You get what I'm saying? So remember, there might be like cellular memories, or there might be people that try to remind you of something that you're no longer participating in, or whatever the case may be. And that's an example of this matter side that you might actually hear, or you might actually pass by it, but don't allow it to capture you and connect you back up to that lower grid, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So that's what's being said here when it says that you have to be a passerby. Okay, you have to be a passerby. All right, so that is the interpretation here of that saying. It's actually really, really simple. Like, for example, this is something here from the Book of Truth. Okay, this is from the Book of Truth, and this down here, when you go all the way down here, at the top is basically the strength that you develop as you are doing the process that I mentioned in saying number 18. Remember that link will be in the description area. So then you're developing that strength, but then down here at the bottom, see what you're leaving? That is an electromagnetic static haze. And remember, that's what we're really referring to when we were referencing to the keys of Enoch here, when it says that you have to understand the difference between these lower levels of subjective experience produced by phosphene geometries, because those are patterns that are have arise from altered states of consciousness. So with you storing your pieces and ideas that fall, once you are on this path of attainment and you are moving up out of those lower experiences, then there are certain things that are associated with those lower vibratory grids in the altered states of consciousness area that actually tries to get you to participate in whatever it is that you're leaving. And in most cases, it's called lower birth. That's what you're leaving. So that's what it means here when it says you have these phosphine geometries that are associated with lower vibratory grids, okay? And then when we reference to the Bhagavad Gita and how it's explaining that you have to be a knower of the field, right? And how the body basically is called the field, right? That's what's called the field. So then as you are moving from the lower experiences, the lower self, and you are becoming born of God, so to speak, as it's mentioned here in 1 John chapter 3, line 9, because when the seed is remaining within you and you are moving up to the highest places of yourself, then you have these other regions that are associated with the lower vibratory grid. And then when you become this indwelling Christ or this indwelling man, then you actually have to understand how to return to those areas and make sure that you're able to restore your pieces properly, if that makes sense. Because the goal is to restore that you possibly created for yourself by associating with ideas that fall, if that makes sense. So then when you are trying to leave an area, then you have that weight, that gravitational pull from the experiences that you've created, and now you have to understand how to make sure to cleanse those experiences and get those pieces of yourself back. While you're on this process, and understand while you're doing it, you have to be a passerby. You have to be a passerby. This is also from page 126 here, from the Book of Truth of the Voice of Osiris. It says, within these regions here, remember this region down here. This region down here. So that one, of course, it is not seeking out this information properly because they're probably caught up in the senses and so forth. But this information that I'm putting together is for that one who is actually really wanting to seek the old path, right? So then here in page 126 of the Book of Truth, it says, within those regions of evil shall be left all those who have no room left of repentance. All right. It says they shall be consumed utterly by what? The evil magnetic energy of their own making. Of their own making. And that's basically what this is down here at the bottom, that you are trying to make sure that you don't actually go back in. Right? So that's what it's basically saying here in this saying when it says you have to be a passerby. And while you're on this path, you have to know the difference between subjective experiences produced by phosphene geometries that are patterns of consciousness connected with the lower vibratory grids. Connected with those lower vibratory grids. So then when you're going through this experience, just think about everything as like waves and particles, like when you're thinking of things like that. So then you'll have certain experiences that are trying to connect you up to something else and trying to connect you up with something else. So then if you was to do a board drawing illustration or a pen and a paper illustration, you can just start associating certain thoughts with certain points. And then you can say, okay, well, what is this thought trying to possibly bring me back into? Do you get what I'm saying? And you can say whatever that back into is, you can possibly call that a grid of some form of an experience, which is probably something lower, right? So then the saying here is saying, look, you just need to be a passerby. You get what I'm saying? If you're doing something, be as if you're not even doing it. Don't get caught up into it too much, because what it's trying to do is get you back into these lower experiences again. Okay, let me straighten that up. So it's trying to get you back into these lower experiences again. Notice down here at the bottom, it's red and what you're dealing with down there. And then you go to and all that kind of stuff. And these are just lower experiences, personality matrices and things of that nature. And most people are actually in those areas, being caught up with the senses and so forth. So it's all about, what school you went to, what team you own or what team you like, or most people identify themselves with those contaminating associations. You get what I'm trying to explain? Or like instead of saying, you want to know what? I came from the light. I want to do what is required in order to return to it, if you get what I'm saying. So these particular videos are for those who are actually on that kind of path for you, okay? So that's what I wanted to explain in this saying. This is saying number 42, and it says you must be a passerby. So what Jeshua was given the information on is while you're on this path of returning and getting back to the beginning, right, then you need to understand what death is so you don't taste that anymore, and then preparing you with the information you need so you don't get caught up into experiences that try to have a gravitational pull on you to get you back into lower states of consciousness, or lower vibratory grids that are associated with just low levels of ignorance or low levels of stuff that gets you back into lower birth possibly again. You get what I'm saying? So you're just getting out of that electrostatic, that electromagnetic static haze that you actually have created for yourself, but then you actually have to understand how to clean all of that up. Even though you've decided to make a change, you have to understand that all the various different departments of you from within are in the same condition that you possibly left them in. Like, for example, like your livers, your lungs, your pancreas, all these various different aspects of you are possibly in those same conditions. So you have to understand how to return to those areas and bring them up to a higher a level, on the same page with the direction that you're going in, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So that's what it's basically saying when it's talking about being a knower of the field. You get what I'm saying? It says, the blessed Lord, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. And one who knows the body is called the knower of the field. And the word Jacob is basically, that's what body is. Jacob means body. So then obviously what ended up happening is Jacob, the body's name got changed to Israel whenever they saw Peniel, whenever there was this rising up, you get what I'm saying, to the highest positions, then there was a name change that took place. So you have to advance yourself while you're doing all of this. But then while you're on that path, you just need to understand how to be a passerby, because there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's waiting to try to get you back into low levels of ignorance. Okay, so that's what saying number 42 is. If you have any questions or concerns about this saying, you can leave them in the comment area underneath the like button for you. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.